Hello, everyone. I'm Tosca Di Matteo, founder of Tosca Coaching and Consulting, and welcome to Talk About It Tuesday. And today I'm super stoked to have you meet Sarah O'Brien Hammond, founder of The Now. We're going to talk about her perspectives of how community is critical to health and also about her transformation to living a life that brings her joy and happiness. So I'm really thrilled because I feel like we're going to really talk about a lot of the things that I'm really passionate about. And here she is now. I will bring her on. Yeah, so thanks for joining now and after the fact. Excited to have the audience here. Perfect. Hi.
Good
Hello,
morning.
hello. Good
I guess it's
morning.
I guess it's afternoon now. It's 11. It's still the morning. It's still the morning. How are
Agreed, agreed.
you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. Are you still in the beautiful state of Vermont?
I am. I am here for a few more weeks and then I head back to Brooklyn.
Oh, that's great. So beautiful here, right? The sun is like it's beautiful and the temperature could not be better this week. We are so blessed.
Yes, yes. It's a great week. Start to April. Can't complain um and I'm excited for this conversation. Yay.
Me
And
too.
yeah. And I was just, was saying before you came on, that I think that this conversation is going to just cover a lot of things that I'm passionate about and that you're passionate about. So I'm really excited to jump in.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. And I've been thinking a lot about this conversation because I do think it covers a lot. And I think that we are not alone in our journey. And I think that it's really healing to hear other people's journeys and recognize you're not alone because that's really powerful. We all can feel really isolated, especially during this time. And it can feel like, oh my goodness, I'm the only one feeling that. I'm the
Right.
only one experiencing that. And it couldn't be farther from the truth. So I think opportunities for people, this beautiful stage that you provide for opportunities for folks to share what they've gone through and what they continue to go through, I think gives people hope too, and inspiration and hopefully motivation to keep forging forward because that's all we can do is put one foot in front of the other and just continue forging forward.
Yes, yes. I'm into that. I'm into that. So I'd love to just kind of pose the question like, tell us your story. Tell us whatever you want to share about you, your journey, and how we're coming to talk about this today. And pardon my puppy whining in
You
the background.
You've got someone that wants your attention, and I can totally relate. I shut the door so mine couldn't get in. I was like, no, 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 Tasca gets all me. So thank you again for having me. I'm so excited to be here and to speak with you. Every time we're on the phone together, I feel like we can talk for 55 more hours, and so I love that. I love conversing with people and getting to the meat, right? Like going below the surface, which is where I really thrive. I'm not like a topical conversationalist. I really enjoy a little bit of meat and substance. And I feel like you and I both go there. And, I really appreciate that. So, yeah, my name is Sarah O'Brien Hammond, and I am the founder of the Network of Women, which is right now a digital community for that supports women through their career, health and wellness, self-discovery, and or motherhood journey. So we really wrap our arms, digital arms now with COVID around the whole of a woman. And we really support women through life. And I think I didn't initially seek out to build a community. It sort of happened because I couldn't find what I was looking for. And I think that's where many businesses begin, right? Because you can't find the product that you're looking for or the service that you're looking for. As I was mentioning, I was joking with Tosca or asking her, she's in Vermont. I'm from Vermont, so I'm born and raised in Vermont, but I've been in New York for 20 plus years. So I'm certainly a New Yorker, but definitely consider myself still tied to Vermont in a lot of ways. And like many people, went through life checking off boxes, right? Like I think society is really loud and clear in telling us what's important. And it's to, go to school, it's to get a good job, it's to make money, it's to find a partner, it's to procreate, it's to own things, it's to have material things. It's very loud and clear what is expected of us. And I don't think we really, or I should say, I didn't stop to really unpack that and really ask, is this what I want? I was just really busy, Tosca. I was super busy checking off those boxes and going a million miles per hour. I have one speed. It's like go, and it's really fast. And I just went like a bat out of hell for 40 years, really checking off these boxes diligently. And so I was going about my business. I was making money. I was finding my partner. I had kid number one. I bought an apartment. I had kid number two. I made more money, and go, 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 go. And I was like, well, there's a rainbow. At the end of the rainbow, there's going to be this beautiful pot of happiness and purpose and fulfillment, right? Because that's what they tell you. Right. Well, they being society, being the strong messages that are sent to us. And I did all of that, and I did it really, really well. And at 42, I had a bit of an awakening, and we can unpack that, because I think a lot of people want to know what was that? Because I think a lot of people live that life where they're looking for something. People say, do what you love. Well, that's really a tough thing when you have no idea what you love. And it's really disheartening when you hear that, when people are like, do what you love. It's like, well, what does that even mean? So it's a journey, and we got to get to finding what it is that I loved, and now I'm able to do it. But at 42, to be quite honest, I'm not sure exactly what the catalyst was, what specifically set me off. But I picked my head up, and I was like, where the hell am I? Like, really, where am I? Like, I have been going so hard, and I had no idea what direction I was heading, what I was going to, what my goals were, what my desires were, what my passion was, what my purpose was. I had no idea. I was too freaking busy just going. And I picked my head up, and I was like, where are you going? What are you doing? What do you want to live? What kind of life do you want to lead? Like, all these questions that are kind of more in that personal development space, which is not something that we're taught. Going into like introspection and reflection, those aren't things that we're taught. I mean, that's why you have a job. That's why your gifts are so important, because we're not taught those things in school. We are just taught, and by society, we're just taught to go linear, too. Right. Go. And so I was really lost, to be quite honest. And I turned to my husband and I said, I'm not happy. And from the exterior, mind you, Tosca, everything looked rosy, right? Like, we had things, and we were doing things, and we had, we were healthy, and we have beautiful kids, and we have things and things and things. So from the outside, I'm sure people were like, she has the best life ever. But inside, I was totally lost. And I turned to my husband, and I was like, I'm not happy. I'm not happy with this life. I'm not happy with these kids. I'm not happy with this marriage. I'm not happy with any of this. And was having some thoughts that would have really blown up everything, to be honest with you, had I really actually gone through with what my mind was like telling me. And I sat in that for a little bit, a really bit of discomfort. And I was like, what the hell am I going to do? Like, because I don't want to just live my life. Like, I don't want to have mediocrity. I've never had mediocrity in my life. I just don't want to live my life. I want to freaking live the best life possible. But I had no idea what that even meant, because I'd never sat. I had never reflected. I had never asked myself, what is important? What legacy do you want to leave on this world? What impact do you want to have? What do you feel passionate about? What contribution do you want to make to this world? Like, I'd never been asked those questions. And so my husband turned to me when I said I was not happy, and he said, well, whatever we need to do to fix this, we're fixing it. Because he's like, I'm not going anywhere. These kids aren't going anywhere. We need to, come up with a game plan. And that's really when I started my journey of like drinking in everything I could possibly get my hands on, like healers, coaches, seekers, scholars. I just was like, I couldn't get enough of it because I just was figuring myself out. I'm 42. So when I see these younger women asking themselves these questions, I get so filled with joy because it makes me so happy that they're stopping to ask themselves. And you know what? It's never too late. If you ask yourself that question ever in life, that's a win. But I think that maybe my life would have been different in some ways had I asked myself that question earlier on in life. But so I really started drinking all of these healers and seekers and coaches and really finding out who I was and finding out what brought me purpose and what brought me happiness, because I really wasn't sure. And I wasn't unhappy. I just wasn't clear what brought me happiness. I think there's a real difference there. Like one of my coaches had me do a happiness, like an inventory. And it was like keeping a list of like what brings you happiness and like jotting it down. So, and as you know, I'm sure the more you recognize what brings you happiness, the more it presents itself, because you're aware of it. So, if I'm walking my dog at 6 o'clock in the morning in New York City and it's quiet, oh, what a beautiful time. Went on my happiness inventory. When my daughter and I were walking down the street and she grabbed my hand, went in my happiness inventory. Not just kids, which is what I think historically people do, right? What brings you happiness? Oh, my kids. Do your kids bring you happiness all the time? Because mine don't. So it's getting really granular on what made me happy. And then I did a ton of work on just passion and what fulfills me. And I was seeking community really through this whole journey. And I wanted a community that really, I needed support. And I had friends. I had a lot of friends. But I needed a support in a safe and judgment-free space. And I was looking and I couldn't find it. I found great networks, but they were really specific, right? Like they were either really professionally focused, mostly professionally focused, actually. And that's fabulous. I love that. But I needed something that married both personal and professional, and I really couldn't find it. I needed to know how to be a badass in the workplace, but also how to have an intimate relationship with my husband that would last for years to come, or dealing with perimenopause, or dealing with stress and anxiety, or, whatever it might be, but all the things that people aren't talking about. I was like, I want to talk about that. And I couldn't find it. And so really the Now was born out of necessity. It was really like, I needed the support and I couldn't find it. And as I talked to my peers, I was realizing that they too were feeling that same thought, that same feeling of like wanting support, feeling there was more to life, feeling they wanted more from life, but were ashamed to say it because they had all the things, right? How dare you say that you're unhappy or that you are unfulfilled? You have children, you have a husband, you have an apartment, you travel, you have a job, you have money that affords you things. But like, ladies, that's no one's decision except your own. That beautiful quote you sent me the other day, I mean, it was like so spot on. You decide. Nobody else decides your happiness. And more women were saying, I feel it too. And I was like, oh my gosh, we need community because I'm not the only one experiencing this. And so that's how the Now was built. But to be honest with you, it wasn't like I built it and was like, I feel so much passion about this. I built it and then I realized how much it fueled me. And that's because I didn't know that I didn't know what it would turn out to be, Tosca, to be honest. Like, I was like, let's have a launch party. I was so excited about having the launch party that I didn't even know. People were like, so what's the Now? And I was like, well, we're a community. And they're like, and what are you going to do? I'm like, well, we're going to have events. But it was nowhere near what it is today, as structured as it is and as diverse as it is today. It was an idea. And then my passion really allowed it to blossom into this like beautiful, gorgeous place that it is now. And so, yeah, I just spoke for a long time. So please like interject.
Oh, that was so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, your journey. There was so much in there. One of the questions that really pops for me is that I think that especially women, we find all kinds of reasons to beat ourselves up. And I think one of the ways we do that is when we say we're not where we want to be. Like, or, oh my God, I wish I did this. So I am wondering if that kind of inner critic voice has entered your mind, because you said you kind of lived this, you know, life until you were 42, where you realized, oh crap, like, am I actually happy? And if so, like, how do you combat that for yourself if it does come up?
Yeah, great question. So I think there was a lot of reasons as to why I didn't stop until I was 42. I think there's a lot of reasons that women just go, right? And they keep
Yeah.
themselves busy and they schedule every hour of their day and they do not want to stop because guess what stopping does?
Yeah.
It forces us to actually reflect and it forces us to look inward and it forces us to face things that aren't so pretty. So who the hell wants to stop? Like I get it.
Mhm.
Um, but it's really about like, I do Ironmans and marathons. And so like, I liken it
Mm.
to like hitting the wall, like that, not the physical wall, but I literally felt like that. Like I'd hit a wall. Like I was like, it literally, like I landed on my ass. Like there was I had to stop. And yes, I absolutely do. I feel imposter syndrome, inner critic. I think it presents itself often. And I think it's work that you have to do consistently, daily, affirmations, meditations, being in a group of people where they can like really talk you off the ledge. Like last night I was
Mhm.
talking to a Now member and she literally was listing all these accomplishments, right? Because we're talking about something. And I was like, she is such a baller. Like I was like, oh my God. And she was like, yeah, I just don't feel like I'm enough.
Mm.
And it's like those conversations where you have to be with people that are like, oh no, sister, you are enough. Wow, did you just hear what you said? And when you actually listen, and I list what I've done in life. And then I let that imposter syndrome present itself. I'm like, or rather, should I say, it's going to present itself. Let it take its course. Hell no.
Mm.
So I always encourage people, you should have a brag list. You should write down what it is you've accomplished in life. Visit that often. It should be on your vision board. Not only should your
Mhm.
vision board be your future visions, but it should be your past to remind you of the fierce warrior you are. So, yes, that limiting belief presents itself constantly, but
Mm.
it's whether or not you're doing the work to be able to silence it. So it presents itself, and I have to work on, yeah, okay, I see
Right.
you, but I'm not going to play. Like, I'm not interested. Because have you seen all the things that I've done? And when you like talk to it, like it's a person, it's actually like funny, right? It's comical. Like you're like, really? Really? Like
Right.
I've done some pretty amazing shit. So I'm pretty sure you should slow your roll and go back down. But no, I don't think any woman's exempt from it. I think
Mhm.
that we just have to work toward constantly, right? It's like we have
Yes.
to work toward being able to silence it, and it's almost like the chatter, the external chatter in the world too, because you can
Mhm.
be on social scrolling, you could become the comparison game, and you've got to silence all that stuff because it only like beats you up. And so I think it's like a lot of things that I do daily. And believe me, Tosca, there are times where I will go in a rabbit hole and I'm like, oh my God, look at this person. They're so successful. They must be making so much money. Oh my gosh, like look at what they added to their platform. God, I suck. And then I'm like, are you seriously like, letting yourself do this? But yeah, because sometimes you sort of have to do that and really kind of like to get to the other side. So I don't
Mm.
think it's about shaming the behavior because it happens. I think it's recognizing it and then getting, recalibrating and being like, okay,
Yes.
this just happened. Let's recalibrate. So I'm absolutely not exempt from that. And, I'm right now in a position where I'm sort of, working towards something big and it is fearful and it is
Mm.
scary. And I have to just remind myself, like every woman out there, remind yourself of the amazing accomplishments you've already made, and you are bound to make future accomplishments. So let's focus on those for focusing on, like, you know, the fear that's trying to like strangle us.
Oh, I love that. What a beautiful like articulation of inner critic and the work to kind of combat that. And I don't mean that in terms of fighting your inner critics, but in terms of quieting them, in terms of letting other values rise to the surface, to reminding yourself of what is truth
Mm,
versus what is false and what is just story. And as a coach myself, I absolutely have to deal with inner critics all the time too. And and I, I think what's interesting because comparison is a big part of it. And I recently had a conversation with one of my clients where it was like she was doing the same thing, right? Looking at everybody else, going, why aren't I there yet? All this stuff. And I said, well, hold on, let's back the truck up a hot second, because what were your goals over the past year, especially this pandemic year, right? Like what was important to you? What was first and foremost? And then because we forget, oh shit, actually I cared about like my kids' safety. I cared about,
mm,
staying sane and
mm.
not going down a rabbit hole, right? And it wasn't about things like financial success. For most of this past year, right? So we have to like remind ourselves, like, what was our goalpost? Because when we look at other people and what they have going on, I look at that as it's information. If you're jealous, it's information about what you want for yourself, about what you see in them that you have in yourself. You just aren't recognizing it, right? As opposed to a reason to beat ourselves up.
I love that. I never looked at it like that.
Mm,
I've never looked at it like that. But yes, if it's bringing up those types of emotions in you, there must be something there that's waiting to get out. What a beautiful way to look at
mm.
it. I've never thought about that.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that actually a lot of people, I think, this question you talk about, what brings me happiness, what brings me joy, and I think a lot of people have a hard time just calling it up like this, but they can easily say what makes them jealous.
Yes,
Okay, let's start with that. What about that person do you want for yourself,
right.
And
It's a starting point. What a beautiful point to raise. Yeah, like don't discount it. It
right.
can still give us data. It can
Yeah,
still give us directional cues of where we want or should be heading. Yeah,
right.
that's great.
And there's a saying too that, when you're triggered, right? Because triggers are gifts. Uh, and you can choose to heal from that and understand it, or you choose to ignore it and it'll just keep coming back. But part of it too is like it's either when you see somebody when something is triggering you, it's often, I don't know if you've heard this in your work, but it's often because you're interacting with somebody that has not yet overcome the things you've already overcome, or that you see your own light reflected in that person, but you're not seeing it in yourself.
Mm,
It's like, I mean, it's maybe not that black and white, but if you look at it that way, it can be way more constructive than, some of these other negative ways
right.
we think
Letting your
about it.
emotions come into play and just like letting it ruin your day. And yeah, I really try. And the work that I've done, yes, looks at that. It's very much like, if you're being triggered, why is that trigger? Like,
Right,
it's not necessarily, it oftentimes is not that person. It's oftentimes
right,
something inside that you've got to work on,
right,
versus displacing it onto that person, because
right.
it's not that. Typically it's, your own shit that you're
Yeah.
kind of working through.
It's always our own shit. And I love how, Ray earlier said we get on a hamster wheel meeting expectations, our own and those of others. And, I think that, like you said early on, so many people don't ever stop and question.
I mean, people don't even take a breath during the
Yeah,
day.
yeah,
Like you think about people are just going a million miles per hour. They're not even taking a breath. Like, when I do a meditation and they're like, so let's just take a breath. Have you thought about taking a breath today? And you're like, holy shit. Like, I actually haven't even thought about taking a
right,
breath. But I do think, like, especially moms, there's so much on our plates, right? It's like, and we're putting the mask on everybody else but ourselves. And I think teaching our daughters to be selfless is a horrible thing. And I think, like, there's a difference between being compassionate, empathetic, um, giving and selfless. And I think like so many women need to recognize that like you've got to put yourself first. You will be a better mother, you will be a better wife, you will be a better everything if you put yourselves first. And I think like that's just something that I also really, really cannot yell enough. And I think people have to get through the guilt. Like I think because society tells us, oh wait, you're not putting your kids to bed. I'm like, oh, actually I have a partner. Like, I remember this, like when my kids were younger, people would be like, "Oh, you're not putting your kids to bed." I'm like, oh no, I'm married. I have a partner, and we split responsibilities.
Right.
Like, you know, or I had friends that'd be like, "Oh, well, I give the bath," and I'm like, "Oh, God bless you," because if I had to give the bath every single night, and I made that my responsibility, and I held on to that without like letting my partner have a beautiful opportunity to have share in that as well, you know. But I don't think women want to put that on themselves. I think again those societal messages are so strong that we have to stop, breathe, ask, reflect, take a minute. But you know, for 42 years I was pretty strong-willed. I wasn't taking a minute. I wasn't ready to take a minute, but I got you know, pushed on my ass, and I had to take a minute.
Yeah. And what did you do like in that time, you know, where you were like, "Oh my God, I'm not happy," and you told your husband like, did you stop? Like, what did you do? Like, what did you change right away? Like, what did you do differently? Maybe it took you some time, but like, what were your immediate next steps when you were like, oh, this isn't working for me anymore?
Well, let me tell you, now I'm 46, so that was 4 years ago, and we're still, you know, it's an evolution, right? I'm not like getting up every day, running and doing like cartwheels down Fifth Avenue, right? Like it's a constant work in progress. But I can tell you where I am now is it's such a better place than where I was then. I have so much more clarity on my purpose on this planet. I have so much more purpose on the contribution I want to have on this world. I have so much more clarity on what fulfills me. But I think like to answer your question, Tosca, like I didn't know what the hell was going on. You know, like I was just like, this sucks. I'm unhappy. I'm miserable. And I was just like, I just was hiring coaches. I was like going online, trying to find support, but I wasn't telling your friend, you know, friends are really interesting, right? Like, I feel like I've been having this conversation a lot with people. It's like, you have friends that are like, I can talk to this friend about this friend about that, or this friend, you know, well, I can't talk to this friend about sex because they don't really have sex and their relationship sucks. I can't really talk to this friend about money because she doesn't really make much money. And I like, it's tough. Can't talk to this friend about career because, you know, they're still like trying to get out in their career, you know, in the 40s, they're still not there yet versus like you're at another place. So it's, friends are really, you know, interesting, right? It's an interesting landscape. It's a whole nother conversation. It's a whole interesting landscape to navigate, but I was just trying to find support. So I was really in those first few days is like, again, I was asking people for coaches. I was trying to find like, you know, support in New York, women's communities. I was really, we started therapy, and like, we actually like did not need talk therapy. It actually, that was a displacement. Like I was like, I'm not happy with you. I wasn't not happy with my husband. I was unhappy because I had no idea how to have this like thriving relationship that I wanted. And so, you know, it was through talk therapy, being in a year of that talk therapy, that I was like, what the hell are we doing? This is not about us. And it was through hiring coaches to do the work internally, doing that personal development over years of like sitting and learning TM. You know, I do transcendental meditation every day, twice a day. So it was through all these different modalities, you know, getting salt lamps all around my house, learning about sage and Palo Santo and clearing the energy, like all this shit that people are like, that's woo woo. I'm like, give it to me. I'll take it over here. So, you know, I would say, what did I do after those initial days is I was just like, I was hungry and I was seeking out knowledge and I was trying to fix it because I was scared.
Yeah.
I was really scared.
I love that. That exploration, you know, and there's a saying, you know, which is like that curiosity and fear can't live at the same place at the same time. And it just, I hear so much like curiosity, so much exploration and experimentation. And I think there are some people that can get really discouraged when they try something and they're like, well, I don't know, that didn't do anything for me. And then and they can kind of give up. But like what I hear from you is just like this determination to say, oh, I'm gonna figure this out. And the openness that you had to say, I don't care where it comes from, and I don't care what label you're putting on it, woo woo or what the fuck, but like I just know I need to find answers for me. And I think that's so powerful to open yourself up, because one of the things that I share with clients too, which is like, my clients often come to me and they often quote the insanity,
Right.
and so they're there because they're like, I'm going to try something different. And to me, and it's part of my journey too, which is like, just keep trying something different.
Yeah.
Just new imprints. I don't care if that's reading books, if that's like taking classes, but just new imprints on your brain, and then be gentle with yourself that you don't have to figure it all out. Just allow and allow and allow, and you will peel back the layers inevitably if
Yeah.
you keep
And I would
going.
say, like, I don't know if it was like, you say like that was really powerful, and I appreciate that, but it was like, what was my option?
Mhm.
Like, what am I going to be single at 42? What am I going to like give up my kids? Like, what am I going
Mhm.
to leave my marriage? Like, what was my option? Like, that wasn't what I wanted. And I'd worked so hard to build this life.
Mhm.
So I was like, I had to figure it out. I guess like I could have left my marriage. I could have, but like, what a shame that would have been, because it actually wasn't about my marriage. It was about Sarah.
Mhm.
It was about figuring, what the fuck do you want? Like, what is going on? Like, what do you want in life? And so I really kind of felt like I didn't have a choice, to be honest with you. And so while I think um, it might look like, wow, you just kept forging forward and trying these new things, which I did. And if anybody knows me, they know that I am like so goal oriented. I'm so
Mhm.
driven. I'm so hungry in life in general. That's not surprising that I would seek out and continue to seek out ways that would serve me. But like, what was my other option? Like, I didn't want to be alone.
Right. Well, and the reality is, because of who you are, that's how you see it. You see it as, I didn't have another option. But your superpower of courageousness, of being willing to undo the conditioning that you experienced, like that, it's so embedded in who you are that I feel like you're not giving credit to, like, this is how I did it. And you absolutely had choices. You could absolutely say, holy shit, I do not want to open Pandora's box. Like, that's too scary, because that's what a lot of people do. They say, oh no, I can't, I won't, I choose not to do that. I'd rather live, because a lot of people would rather live in the comfort of what they know than the
Yeah.
discomfort of what they don't know. So I'm just going to get on my little soapbox and say, Sarah, own it, because like, when you own it, you help other people own it too. Because
Yeah.
it is a
No.
choice. It is a
I,
choice.
thank you. I will own that for sure. And yes, the way that you put it, I think it is just part of my DNA. Like, that no is not an option.
Right,
Like,
right, right.
um, there's always a way to figure something out. Always. Like, I just am like,
Yeah.
that's embedded in me. But to your point, yes, I meet people constantly that are like, can't happen. Nope. And I'm like, oh, but my friend, it
Right.
can. So yeah, I think it is embedded in who I am, and I do think it is. My resilience is very much a superpower that I kind of don't often remember. And I think that
Mm.
thank you for reminding me. It is important, but to say, like, it did not happen overnight. So I don't want
Right.
to give the false pretense that like this is like all of a sudden I was like, oh, rainbows and unicorns the next day. Like, oh hell no, it wasn't. It was a lot
Yeah.
of work, and to your point, a lot of uncomfortable um, uh, reflections, a lot of uncomfortable conversations, a lot of really figuring out what makes me, and what do I want, and what do I
Mm.
want out of life in its entirety, and speaking your truth and owning it, and getting in alignment with what you do with your life's purpose, and getting
Mm.
alignment in your relationships. And so getting alignment with your finances and like literally every area of your life. And I just went through every area of my life, and I
Right.
was like, okay, what areas are important to me? And so, my family, my children, my husband, my house, my spirituality, my body, my friendships, community, like all these, money, I've all of these areas of my life that I had to get in order and really figure out, okay, where does this need help? Where does this need help? Where does this need help? And then it's constant, right? So, I have coaches, it's a lot of work. And so I turn to a lot of people, and it takes a village. It's not like, I certainly did not do this on my own. And I don't think it's possible, to be honest with you. I think you have to find, and that was part of the now, to find a safe and judgment-free space where you can walk into a room and share your feelings and not feel that someone's casting shame on you or judgment.
Right.
Because unfortunately, that's why a lot of people don't go to their friends.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, a lot of shame and judgment lives there. And I think that there's not enough judgment-free spaces where people can exist and speak their truth and be okay with it. And every time I have a now event and I see someone speak their truth, and I see other women in the room let their shoulders drop and take a deep breath and know they're not alone, it is a constant reinforcement that I'm doing my life's work. And there's nothing in the world that lights me up and gives me as much purpose as that does.
Yeah. I love how you express that too, because there's a couple things I want to talk about, but I think that as a career coach, as one of the ways that I serve, I think we often get in this idea of like, it's this task, it's this, right? It's this responsibility that I enjoy, but we don't go deeper to say like what is it you're actually doing that you enjoy, and maybe it's like conflict resolution but it's not like project management, right? Like where it's like, how do you get granular? I love you said this earlier, like getting granular on like, that moment that the shoulders drop and you're like, this is why I do what I do. I think everybody has the opportunity to ask themselves that same question. Where do your shoulders drop? When in your body are you the most relaxed? Like, and paying attention to like, where is, the excitement in your day? At what time? And there's so much information everywhere that we have access to, right?
That's so powerful. I feel like we had a sensuality event 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about our senses. And I was realizing that my senses are dull. And so even from those last 2 weeks, I've been like hearing more because I'm more aware. And like, when you're in yoga class and they're like, what does the air feel like on your body? I'd be like, what? I don't feel anything. But yeah, you feel it when you're dialed in, right? Like, and the smells, like when you drink your coffee, do you smell that? Or are you just downing it? Right? So it's like, to your point, you got to start, because sometimes people don't even, they just go through life. 90% of people, but by the way, get up, go to work, come home, cook dinner, sit in front of a TV, and then go to bed. They're not expanding themselves. They're not questioning anything. They're not stopping to reflect. They're not contributing in a meaningful way to society. I mean, most people live like that. And I'm not, if that brings people happiness, I'm not judging that. But what I'm saying is that if you open up that window a little bit, imagine the expansion. And to your point, imagine the richness that you could welcome into your life. And that's what I've experienced, is like, now I know.
Right.
And when you know what brings you happiness, when you know the things that you like, then you can get rid of the bullshit that doesn't serve you. Get rid of the people that aren't serving you. And so it's like, it's the total time saver, because I'm dialed in. But again, it takes time. It takes like slowing down, and it takes actually stopping for a moment. And for people, like for me, if sitting still for like any period of time, I was like, oh, hell no. Shavasana at the end of yoga, I used to go to yoga class, like 2 minutes or whatever. And I would sit there and I'd be like tapping my fingers, like, okay, when are we done? I got people to go. I got places to go, people to see. I got to get out of here. And now I can sit in Shavasana for like, oh, hell, I'd sit in Shavasana all day if I could. but you know, it's that constant, back to what we were saying initially, earlier, about stopping actually makes you stop and think. And it makes you think about things you'd rather not. But you can't have it all without looking there too, right? Like, I think you can't figure out what brings you peace, what brings you purpose, what brings you fulfillment in this world, unless you figure out those pieces of yourself that you might not want to see. And for me, it was very small. Like, I had to incrementally add time. So back to your question about what did I do right away? I had to slowly add time to my day, because I wasn't going to start meditating an hour a day.
Right.
Karen says I'd sit in a sound bath all day. Tell system freeze, as would I. Like, you know, but what I did 4 years ago, oh hell no. When that sound bath started, I'd be like, I'm out of here. Because the sound bath, it's aligned with your chakras. So when they're doing the sound bath and you're hearing this high pitched, it's sending you a message. And I'd be like, no thanks, I'm leaving, I'm not interested. But now I'm like, where is that? What chakra is it hitting? Because I think I've got some work to do in that area. But again, it started small. Like, I wasn't spending my time in these things. I was like, can I sit in silence for a minute?
Right.
And then I would go, add on to it. Can I think of 3 things that I'm grateful for today? And still to this day, my practice is I do transcendental meditation twice a day. It's 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the afternoon. I get up in the morning. I do not touch my phone. 90% of people pick up their phone and look at it the first thing that they do. And that sets the tone for the whole day, mind you. I don't touch my phone. I don't do anything. I look at the time, and then I close my eyes and I start meditating for 20 minutes. And then I do my gratitude journal, which is just 3 things I'm grateful for, 3 things that would make today great, and my I am statement. And then I can look at my phone. It's like, that's the goal. You can look at the phone after, because guess what? I've set my tone for the day. I've set my intention. So if I hit something on the phone that's going to set me back, it's not going to be as impactful as it would have been had I picked it up and not done those practices. And then I work out. So that's, for me, that's like what I put in place. And I spend intentional time in my week with just me, and not planned. I have no agenda. It's just sitting with myself, and it's an hour at a time. And I do it a few days a week, and a few times a week. And I just sit and let things come to the surface. And that is powerful.
I love, oh my gosh, there's so much to take away from, your sharing, your process, your, like, what you choose, to do every day, and how you stay in that center place. And I think one of the things that I just want to highlight too in what you shared is how the body has so much information, and how I think so much of the world that we live in and the way that we're trained is to really overvalue our minds and to stay in the head space, to live from this head space, right? And that for those that might be really focused on, I just want to figure it out, figure it out. I'm gonna like work my brain way through this. I would offer, to listen to your body, to hear what your body has to say. There's a lot of information. Even if you feel a tightness in your chest, like literally you can go in and say, what message do you have for me? And it may sound woo-woo, and this may sound kind of cray-cray. The reality is that our bodies have way more knowledge than our minds. We've just overemphasized the mind in our society, that we discredit or discount, like, all of that. So I just want to call that out, and I am curious, like, your journey of getting into your body, because it sounds like you were disconnected and then you figured
100%.
out.
I was living in my head for 42 years.
Yeah.
For sure. Oh, it was all head. It was not hard. It was all head. And I think that, that's, you try to rationalize things. And again, like they say, any right decision shouldn't be made from the head. It should be made from the heart. Right. And I'd be like, yeah. Like, again, that's woo woo. I'm not interested. Like, I'm just going to keep going. um, and yeah, what a beautiful articulation you just made in point of like, it was this transformation of traveling from my head down to the heart. And, you know, asking, and it's certainly, again, by way of a lot of help by a lot of coaches and healers, and me sitting in and being asked a ton of questions about, you know, about myself, and a ton of questions about, you know, our stories that we absorb from childhood, and the mindsets that we absorb and oftentimes are living, which often aren't ours, that we've inherited. So how can we set those aside to be able to live our lives and not things that we've absorbed from our formative years? And so, yeah, that journey, I think, was through a lot of work. I think it was through meditation. I think it was through just, I'm not a journaler, but like gratitude. I think like really the happiness inventory that one of my coaches gave me, like what she said to me, Sarah, I don't think you're happy. I started bawling. Like I was like, holy shit. But wait, I've done everything they say I'm supposed to do. Like, I don't understand. How is that possible? I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. Like, I've done it. Why not? That's head, right? Why not? I was forcing it. And then when my coach said, well, we're going to focus on what brings you happiness. So simple. But Tosca, like you said earlier, it was really hard for me to, when you said what brings you happiness, I didn't know. Yeah. And like I said, the generic, my husband, my kids, travel. That's such bullshit. Like, no, sitting at the top of, you know, a mountain with my kids, like a real pointed moment, or, you know, like really thinking about specifics, like we said earlier, granular, like what, because like, or your job brings you happiness all the time. What about your job brings you happiness? What about your husband actually brings you happiness? And then what pisses you off? Because let's unpack that. And so I think it was a lot of just it really was just stopping. To be honest with you, it was someone kind of holding me and being like, you have to stop. And in my whole life, like I've heard Sarah slow down my whole life. My parents, my coaches in sports, just I moved really quickly. I was very impulsive. I was very just, and that's a theme that I constantly work with, right? I don't want to be impulsive. I want to be thoughtful and strategic and mindful. And so I think it really is just for lots of people who this might be resonating, where they might be saying like, no, I don't just want to live. I want to live the best life I can. I want to feel life. I want to smell it. I want to taste it. I want to be present. I want to be able to do the things that really light me up. Like when I ask people, it lights them up. It's like either a blank stare or, again, those more generic things. And when I say, tell me more about your husband or your partner, what lights you up about them? I don't know. It's like, if we could just sit in that a little bit. I think that's where the real traveling started, is like me just sitting in that and working with professionals like yourself that were asking me really great questions. And then just not being afraid. I just wasn't like afraid to go there. Yeah. I just was like, you know what? This is my truth. This is where I'm at. And that's why I think it's so important that I share this, because I'm not afraid to share. I'm not afraid to say that I was lonely, that I felt like I lacked purpose and fulfillment, and that I was close to risking everything. Like many women can relate to that. And whatever their risk of risking everything, whatever that looks like for them. I'm sure many women have been in that position where they're just like, I just don't even know if I want it anymore.
And I think it's especially powerful to share because what I've seen, especially in white women, is this like just this desire to say, to dismiss the experience and the feelings. Oh, but I have it so much better. And you do. And that perspective, having perspective is important, and it doesn't mean you can't have compassion for yourself or what you're feeling and how you're not happy, you know, because that serves nobody to just toss away your own experience. It's like that idea that there's a finite amount of compassion in the world. No, that's not true. I mean, I did the same thing to myself for years, and that, like, I, before the age of 22, I had over a dozen surgeries, and I just dismissed it for years and years to say, whatever, I got it easy. Like, at least I have health care and I can do stuff. And it took me years and years to realize, oh shit, like that was fucking hard. And, and it was, all those things. So I learned myself too that it's okay to your feelings are okay, they're valid, and they also have space in the world, and it's okay to take it.
Yeah, it's interesting you make that point, because I was thinking this morning that I never want to come across as ungrateful. And and what you're saying is very much in line with that. Like, I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful with what I have in life. I've never been ungrateful.
Right, right.
The abundances that I have in my life, oh, I am so grateful. But that does not mean that I can't be bummed out. It doesn't mean that I can't be pissed off. It doesn't mean that that it's bad for me to want more.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm like, no. There's more.
Mm-hmm.
There's more. And you can have it. And I'm not talking about materialistically more, right? I'm talking about expansion.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying, like, it's okay. And don't feel like, wait a minute, I'm kind of taking up enough, or I have enough, or I should be lucky. Right? Because that's what I feel like a lot of people say. Like, when I started the Now, it's like, me too. And I'm like, so why are we whispering? Well, I kind of feel that I have all these things, and I don't want to be judged that I'm gluttonous, that I want more. And I'm like, oh, so you're going to let someone else determine your barometer of what, your happiness barometer? And so I think, like, that's a beautiful point to make, that, like, regardless of your position, you can have whatever feelings you have are valid, and you get to decide how you feel. And again, like, gratitude's important. So let's not forget about that. Let's come at it from a place of, like, I'm immensely grateful. Thank goodness you have had health insurance. Thank goodness you had the means to be able to do whatever you needed to do. Similarly, thank goodness I had the means to hire coaches and do what I wanted to be doing. But it didn't mean that I wasn't in a really fucking shitty position.
Right. And I would say, and this is where I think, and I don't know how you feel about this. My perspective is, when we're doing the inner work, especially as people in privilege, white America, that part of that work is understanding your own, your whiteness, and what that means for you in your life, and what that means in your communities and in the broader sense. And I think that piece is not always brought to the forefront, to say, oh, part of this work is how we are contributing, knowingly or unknowingly, to white supremacy, and how do you untangle that? And I think it's I think it's part of the work that either, people are, either they get it or they don't, and they need exposure to it in order to say, I got other work to do here besides, like, this stuff. I'm curious because I'm curious your perspective, because also one of the things that you talk about is a safe space. And a safe space for a person of color means something very different than maybe somebody else. So I'm curious, like, what safe space means to you, and what you think this self-discovery process involves as it relates to community and who else we're around.
Wow. Big question. I feel like we could spend an hour.
I know. I'm sorry.
15,000 hours on that alone. No, I so welcome the question. I welcome this conversation. It's so important. And I am constantly asking myself, what is my contribution as a white woman to racism in this world? Unconsciously or not, right? Like, And I think if you're not asking yourself that question as a white person, there's a problem. So I think that, that is a constant conversation I'm having, not only with myself, but with my community. And as you know, we are an inclusive community. And I pride myself. I mean, we just had a retreat a couple of weeks ago, and more than 50% of our speakers were women of color. And that just wasn't by surprise and chance. That was very intentional and amazing women. I mean, it was just so exceptional. And, I think the only way that people can understand is to put themselves in environments to gain different perspectives with different experiences, of different people, right? Like I can only start to understand when I have a conversation with a person of color, their journey, their oppression, their struggle. I can't understand it truly by reading a book or an article. It helps. Like I try and, I'm always just trying to educate myself and, put myself in environments that I am learning, but I truly cannot learn until I put myself in a group, in conversations with other people who do not look like me. And people are just curating their little bubbles on social media. They're curating their little bubbles in their social environments, in their social circles. And that's what makes me so proud about the Now, is that I have women that are from all different experiences, all different nationalities, all different sexual orientations, all different socioeconomic classes. Like, that's powerful. That's where real empathy, real understanding, and real connection comes, right? Like, and I truly feel that when people are not exposed, there's this ignorance, right? Because they don't know. And that's not an excuse. I'm just saying I can understand how it can happen. When you're not putting yourself in environments where you're not educating yourself, I can understand how that can happen. And so how do I create a safe space? Like, right, you're right. My safe space, and the way I define it, is defined as a white woman. And Sam, I totally understand. She's saying we can't understand, but we can stand. Yes, exactly. I cannot understand, but I can stand next to my fellow women of color and listen to their stories and do what I can do to contribute to social equality, to racial equality. I can do what I can do. But again, I don't know what to do unless I'm putting myself in environments to learn what to do, right? Like, you can't sit in a room with white people and decide how you're going to solve the problem. You need to put yourself in environments where you're exposed to different people that are being, that are the victims, and hearing what their needs are. So the Now, in my little way, is that, the programming is driven by the community. So my programming is driven by me talking to Tosca, talking and engaging with my other members to say, what's top of mind for you? And I hear and sit with all of my members, and I hear. So, regardless of their race, I'm hearing what their needs are. And then we're creating programming to meet those needs. And again, it's not programming driven by white women for white women, and I think that's a lot of the programming that's out there, especially in the health and wellness space. I mean, that's another conversation. This is not, yes, I am a white woman who happens to be at the helm of this organization. I can't change that. But what I can change are my speakers that are coming in, my members, making sure that that it's inclusive, that they see each other in this space, and that it continues to grow to be an inclusive representation of the world, and not just, again, my little bubble of people that look like me, because that does not light me up. That is one thing that does not light me up.
See, and I thank you for this, and that's partly why I wanted to ask you, because I know that these are your values and your ethos and how you do the work that you're doing, which I think is so important. And I just want to make sure that your audience, the audience watching now and later, can hear this and know, because I think, and I was just having a conversation with one of my friends, right? There's a difference between allyship and co-conspiratorship. And what I hear from you is co-conspiratorship when you put women of color on the panels, and when it is a part of how you think about community, that is the way forward, I believe, and I think that, like you said, like the ideas of self-discovery, like these ideas are, you know, it's inclusive of community. Um, and so I'm curious, actually, and I know we're like at time and I want to respect your time, but I think that the question I want to ask is, it feels so apropos now, is like the title of this was how community is critical for our health. And so I just love to hear, now that we've heard your journey of how you've come to this place of awakening, of identifying what it is you truly desire, not society. You created this community because you needed it for yourself, and now you see so many other people feel the same way. And so, how does this all tie to health?
Yeah. And I also just want to say to sort of on our last point, I don't have it figured out. Like, I'm still a white woman trying to figure out how to
Yeah,
continue to be inclusive, how to
yeah,
continue to build a community that is representative of everyone. So, like, I
yeah.
fall on my face constantly, but the good news is that I've got a lot of women of color around me that are helping to
Mm,
direct and guide and lend a hand. And that's
mm,
not their job, is not to teach me. My job is to teach myself and to figure it out. But their job is not their job, their beautiful gifts is that they're able to impart
mm,
on me like help along the way,
mm, mm.
which I'm so immensely grateful for. And so, like, just to point that out, like, I just
Yeah,
want
no, thank
you
you.
know I'm
We're all
it's
learning. If we're not
yes,
making mistakes, we're not doing the work, right? If we're not falling on our
exactly.
face every, so often,
Exactly. And I
we're not,
welcome constantly, anyone watching this, like, if you're like, oh wait, you might have misspoke or what, like,
mm,
please let me know. I can only be better where I know where
right,
I'm falling short. So
yeah.
that's really important. So I just think community as a whole, I know that I definitely could not have gotten where I am today without a community of women that were just literally side by side,
Mm,
virtually or not, just holding space for each other, right? And bringing women in that are able to talk about things that are pertinent to you, bringing women in that allow you to question yourself.
mm,
I always say three things must happen at a now event. You must connect with someone, and as you know, we do intentional networking at the beginning of every event. So
mhm,
you must connect with someone, you must learn something, and you must leave feeling inspired to take action in your own life.
mm,
Those three things must happen, and at every event. And so we do, painstaking efforts to make sure that we create experiences where women walk away with those things happening and where they feel that they were represented. And that's really important. And so I think it's detrimental. It's imperative that you have support around you. The world is not meant for us to be doing this alone,
yeah,
and it's much more fun when you get to do it with others, and it's
mm,
also just less lonely. And even during this pandemic where we've had to switch to digital, we're global. I mean, we have members all over the world. How beautiful is that we have this beautiful expansion, that now we get to learn how people are coping with these things in India, or how people are coping with these things in Europe, or how they're in Canada, or in Michigan, whatever. I mean, we're all dealing with the same things. How beautiful it is that we get to get different perspectives from people from all over the world. Because again, that's where the greatest growth happens, when you have conversations with people that think differently than you, that look differently than you, and have different backgrounds. That's where the
mm,
greatest growth in life happens, I
mm.
feel.
Amen to that. I mean, I got nothing to add to that. And Shige is saying she loves what you said. I can only be better when I know where I'm falling short. And actually, Shige, she was on the show, and her topic was community too. You would probably
Oh,
really enjoy her conversation. She was so giving in her experiences too.
oh, great.
Um, yeah, but oh my gosh, like Sarah, my body is full of energy. Speaking of, right? I so appreciate. I just appreciate you, appreciate what you stand for, your transparency, your vulnerability, what you're doing, and how you're contributing. And I feel blessed and honored to know you now, and have you on this platform. It's such a gift. So,
Mm.
um,
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so blessed and honored,
mm.
and just so glad our orbits collided. Thank you, Deborah, who made the introduction, by the way, who we are both are
Yes.
obsessed with. And just like, I'm so happy to have you part of this community, and I'm so happy to be doing work that is in total alignment with who I am. And like, I think
Mm,
when you find work where you feel that alignment is there, oh, there's nothing better.
mm,
So, definitely, to all your members or your listeners, you can check us out at the Now NYC. We're happy to have you as a guest at any of our events. If there's something that piques your interest, come experience it for yourself. Sit digitally side by side amongst your sisters, learn, expand, grow. I mean, it's a real beautiful community, and there's no better way for me to explain it than for you to experience it. So thank you so much for having me. What a beautiful conversation. I really feel my cup is full. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I definitely second that. Check out the nownyc.com and see if it calls to you to get the support and community that makes us all healthier.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. And hopefully this isn't the end. More to come, more to come.
More to come. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Have a magical day.
Yes, yes. Ciao for now. Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye.